Have you ever stopped to think about how a single, tiny strip of water, just 21 miles wide, could literally hold the entire global economy hostage? It sounds like the plot of a thriller, but it's a very real, very fragile part of the world we live in. And today, we're going to look at just how fragile that system really is.
So let's just dive right in. The best way to understand this is to walk through a crisis that shows us exactly what that completely different world might look like. Now, this isn't science fiction. It's a very plausible scenario pieced together from some serious analysis of the region's geopolitics.
Okay, picture this. The date is February 28, 2026. You wake up to the news. There have been major U.S.-Israeli military strikes against Iran. The operation's codename is Epic Fury. And Iran's response? It's fast, it's targeted, and it's aimed right at the world's economic jugular.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps puts out a message, and it is crystal clear. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. All navigation is now prohibited. And just to show they mean business, they launch attacks on commercial ships. Within just a few days, at least 21 vessels are hit, and the world's most important energy highway just stops.
And what's just wild to see here is the speed of this collapse. On any given day, you'd see about 138 ships pass through the strait. But just 2 days into this crisis, that number free falls to 13. That's a 90% drop, practically overnight. The artery has been completely clamped shut.
So to really get why this is such a massive deal, we need to back up for a second and understand why this one little passage is so unbelievably important, not just for the Middle East, but for every single one of us.
You see, the Strait of Hormuz is what's called a maritime chokepoint. The best way to think about it is like a major highway intersection that has absolutely no detours, no backroads. It's the only way for ships to get from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. And it is, without a doubt, the single most important choke point on the entire planet. Get this. Every single day, a full 1/5, 20% of all the oil the world runs on passes through this one narrow strait. We're talking about 20 million barrels a day. So any problem here doesn't just nudge gas prices. It threatens the very foundation of the global economy. And hey, it's not just about oil. The strait is just as vital for liquefied natural gas, or LNG. A third of the world's entire seaborne LNG supply, most of it coming from Qatar, takes this route. That's the gas that heats homes and powers factories from Europe all the way to Asia. And this chart really tells the story of who feels the pain first and hardest. A staggering 84% of all that crude oil sailing through Hormuz is headed straight for Asia. That means the economies of giants like China, Japan, and India are all incredibly dependent on this one, very vulnerable waterway staying open. So that begs the question, right? How can one country actually pull this off? How can they blockade such a critical route when they're facing off against some of the most powerful navies in the world, like the U.S. Navy? Well, the answer is pretty brilliant, in a way. It's a strategy built on disruption, not destruction. Iran has spent decades perfecting what military analysts call an area denial strategy. It's got 3 main parts. First, you've got anti-ship missiles tucked away in bunkers along that rugged coastline. Perfect camouflage. Second, they have fleets of small, fast, armed speedboats designed to just swarm and overwhelm a much larger ship. And third, they have a huge stockpile, over 5,000 naval mines, ready to go, basically turning the strait into a deadly, invisible obstacle course. And this is the core of what we call asymmetric warfare. Look, Iran knows it cannot win a traditional head-to-head naval battle with the U.S. That's not the goal. The goal isn't to sink an aircraft carrier. It's to make the risk of even trying to pass through so high that no shipping company, and certainly not their insurance provider, is willing to take that gamble. It's all about creating chaos and fear. All right, so the strait is closed. Now let's follow the dominoes as they fall. The shockwave to the global economy, it doesn't take months or even weeks to hit. It takes days. I mean, just look at how fast this all unravels. March 1st, the day after the closure, all the major shipping lines just stop. They suspend all traffic. By March 2nd, you've got European gas prices spiking by 45% because that Qatari LNG is cut off. And by March 8th, oil shoots past $100 a barrel, and you've got runaway inflation kicking in all over the world. And beyond those big headline numbers, the real-world consequences hit hard and fast. Insurance rates for any ships in the region go through the roof, making shipping impossible. Global supply chains, which were already kind of fragile, are just thrown into chaos. And you know, we can't forget the human cost. There are immediate reports of at least 8 sailors killed in those first attacks on the tankers.
Okay, so the global economy is teetering on the edge of a full-blown crisis. Naturally, the big question on everyone's mind is, who's going to fix this? Who can actually reopen the street? Well, the United States immediately starts making calls, trying to put together an international naval coalition to go in and restore freedom of navigation. But the response they get? Well, it's not what they were expecting. And this is where the geopolitical reality sets in. America's key allies, they're nervous. They're worried about getting dragged into a wider war, and they see the huge risks. Germany says, nope, this isn't a NATO issue. Japan says it won't send escorts. Spain rules out any military action. That big, powerful coalition that's needed to project overwhelming force, it just doesn't come together. And at the end of the day, there's just no easy fix here. There's no magic button to press. That same asymmetric strategy Iran used to close the strait makes reopening it an absolute nightmare. I mean, how do you clear thousands of naval mines while you're under constant threat from hidden missiles in those swarm boats? Military experts have called the task costly, time-consuming, and, to quote them, near impossible to do safely while the conflict is hot. And this really brings us to the final unsettling thought here. A crisis like this just peels back the curtain and reveals a fundamental weakness in the global systems we all rely on. For everything. The fuel in our cars, the goods in our stores, it all depends on these fragile supply chains. And it forces us to ask a really tough question. If one choke point, one 21-mile stretch of water, can cause this much chaos, how secure is our world, really?
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more How Meets History.